you. Thank you so much for your service in the Biden administration and also for your testimony today. I'm glad the Biden administration has recently revised the conventional arms transfer policy to ensure defense sales and weapons transfers are consistent with our values and our strategic goals. I have a few questions regarding these policies. The conventional arms transfer policy states that the United States will not transfer arms to a country if the United States assesses that, quote, it is more likely than not that the arms to be transferred will be used by the recipient, unquote, to violate international humanitarian or human rights law. Prior to an arms sales, does the United States government make an affirmative assessment on whether those arms would meet this standard, and who in the administration is responsible for making these assessments?
That is an assessment that's made. We start within the State Department to look at that, and we have discussions within the State Department. But these are looked at within your agency. So, yeah.
But an assessment is made before the transfer of these arms?
Yes.
Okay. And last week, the White House released National Security Memorandum 20, which aims to ensure that U.S. security assistance is used in line with U.S. law and international humanitarian law. Specifically, the memo creates an enforcement mechanism to hold countries accountable if they're found to have violated provisions such as Section 6201 of the Foreign Assistance Act, which states that the U.S. shall assess if a country has denied or restricted the delivery of U.S. humanitarian aid to a country. So I wanted to ask you, are there any countries that have provided exceptions to the transparency requirements under last week's National Security Memorandum, or will it be applied to all countries equally?
It's going to be applied to all countries. That fit within the definitions of the Act, yes.
And has the State Department received credible and reliable written assurances from Israel that they will not impede the delivery of U.S. humanitarian assistance?
We have talked to Israel about the NSM, and they are aware of it and agree to it.
Have they provided us any kind of assurances?
We are in the process of, as I said, if you look at the NSM, it provides a time frame if a country is at war to provide those assurances.
Will we demand assurances from them?
It's part of, yes, it's part of the NSM. Yeah.
Okay. And just this morning, the Wall Street Journal reported that the Department of State is investigating whether the bombs used in an Israeli attack on the Jabalia refugee camp were provided by the United States. How does the State Department plan to conclude if the bombs used in this airstrike were provided by the United States? And if the State Department concludes that the U.S. provided the bombs, what steps will the State Department take in response?
Well, one of the things that I think that the NSM is trying to do is trying to help the public understand the way in which we address these issues. So if it turns out that that is the case, we will take it back and we will deliberate and consider what the next steps will be, and we will incorporate that into our considerations for next steps. I can't say specifically what we're going to do, but I can certainly say that we are very focused on the issue. We understand the importance of the issue to the American people, and we will take that back and assess what we should do next steps.
Thank you. And switching subjects, but also within your purview, and you may have to take this one for the record, Ambassador Jenkins, the family of bureaus you lead has a responsibility over U.S. engagement with the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons and the Chemical Weapons Convention Annex. There's a proposal in front of this Congress to add fentanyl and fentanyl-related substances to Schedule 2 and 3 of the Chemical Weapons Convention Annex. And I have serious concerns about this proposal, and I understand that the State Department does as well. In response to a previous inquiry of mine, the State Department stated that, quote, the department assesses that adding fentanyl to the Chemical Weapons Convention schedules would not enhance our ability to identify fentanyl traffickers or address chemical weapons risks related to fentanyl. I also understand that adding fentanyl to the Chemical Weapons Convention Annex would imperil the DoD's access to fentanyl for pain management of battlefield injuries and prevent legitimate shipments of fentanyl to Taiwan and Israel, who are not parties to the Chemical Weapons Convention, devastating their healthcare systems. So I wanted to ask you, do you believe that adding fentanyl and fentanyl-related substances to the Chemical Weapons Convention's Annex is appropriate, and what do you see as the impacts of doing so?
Yes, first of all, I just want to acknowledge that I recognize the impact of fentanyl, and so I definitely understand and the importance of these issues. But as you said, we do not see that as we do not see the CWC and the OPCW as a way in which to do this. As you mentioned, fentanyl also has other medical purposes, And by putting this on the CWC, OPCW schedules, it will impact and disrupt individuals who need some of that for medical purposes from using it. And it's also not going to really, as you said, focus and really do what it needs to, what we are looking for is interdiction issues.
Thank you, Secretary. You'll back.
Thank you very much, Congressman Castro. We now recognize Congresswoman and Ambassador Ann Wagner.
I thank the chairman and the undersecretary for her time and service. China represents an urgent threat to the United States and its partners. We have an important advantage, however, a range of partnerships and alliances that are unshakable and battle-tested, including AUKUS, a critical security partnership between the U.S., Australia, and